All right, what is up, everybody? Eddy Barker here once again, and I'm very excited because, you guys know I'm always excited because I have really cool people that come on the show to talk about music and other really cool things, and today is definitely no exception because I have somebody who I consider very talented. I got introduced to his music very recently, and it couldn't be fast enough because I quickly fell in love with his voice, with his talent, and basically in no time at all, this guy has basically been blowing up. He's everywhere. He's doing collabs left and right. He's making music. I mean, the list goes on, and I could spend all the time in the world saying great things about my guest, but I'd rather he do it himself. I have Mr. JT Roach joining me on the show. JT, how are you, my man?
What's up, Eddy? I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh, dude, I'm doing great. A little bit earlier, we were talking about, this whole time that we're living in right now. I feel like that's the conversation everyone's having. It's just bizarre being stuck at home and not being able to go outside. But you were the smart one. You kind of you dipped town right as the quarantine was starting to settle in. You are right now currently you're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, I'm in my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, at my parents' house in Fitchburg. I dipped out of Los Angeles with my girlfriend and our puppy, and I remember when we were leaving LA, which was over 2 months ago. Our friends were kind of like, "Why are you leaving?" Like, they didn't really get it. And then like a day later, it felt like the entire music industry shut down. So
everything shut down, man. Like literally overnight. Everything was
it
just
happened
closed
really fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm curious, over there in Wisconsin, everybody over there is pretty much staying home, I'm assuming. Are things starting to line up at this point, or are things still pretty much the same that they were like a month or two ago?
I think a little bit of, they're calling it quarantine fatigue. I think people naturally want to lighten up their policies and just their restrictions and overall the risks that they're taking. Certainly in my family, we're taking it very seriously. We wear masks if we go out. I wipe down our groceries with, Clorox wipes or whatever I have to sanitize our groceries. And, we're taking every precaution we can. My dad has a history of lung issues, so we have a little bit of extra motivation to be extra careful. But,
yeah,
I do see Wisconsin in headlines right now because some counties, I don't know the exact policies, but some places in Wisconsin did open up bars. I don't see that in Madison, Wisconsin. I think, I could imagine some of the smaller towns in Wisconsin not having any cases in their town and wondering why they're watching their local bars go out of business. But I'm definitely personally on the conservative side of let's, not take any unnecessary risks and let's all stay home and stay safe and protect each other,
Absolutely. I mean, it's close to home to you too, and so you're kind of taking the precautions that you need for your family and for your immediate loved ones. And, everyone has a different opinion when it comes to this thing that we're currently going through. And I can absolutely understand the fatigue that everyone is experiencing. My question for you is, I asked somebody else this not that long ago, but I'm curious for you. How is this quarantine? I almost said that wrong. How has this quarantine been for you creative wise? Like, have you found a lot of good time to spend doing music or maybe even other stuff?
Honestly, creatively, it's been wonderful, which it's like a silver lining kind of thing. The first 2 to 3 weeks that all this was happening and escalating, I felt like I was incapable of being creative because I was so busy just trying to process everything and wrap my head around what the best plan of action was for me and my family. And, I was like anxious too. I think there was a lot of anxiety for a lot of people when this was escalating. Like, how bad is this going to get? How quickly? And how contagious is it? And this and that. So, I got back to Madison, and me and my girlfriend and our puppy quarantined in my parents' basement for 2 weeks. Didn't interact with my parents. We stayed extremely locked down. So during that time, I felt like I was just trying to take care of my physical, mental health and that of my loved ones. But after, a few weeks, it's been a blessing for me creatively. I have, a great mic here. I've got guitars. I got my laptop. I've got this BAE DMP, like awesome preamp that I love that's super mobile to get that kind of Neve console sound. And I just got a new Bach 251 mic that I love. So, I have this amazing mobile setup that sounds wonderful. And I turned my old childhood bedroom into like a little mini recording studio. I got a bunch of acoustic blankets and hung them up all over the walls, and it really doesn't sound bad in here. So I've been cutting records and writing projects for myself, for other people, doing film and TV work. I got some exciting collabs coming up that I can't announce yet, but that I'm really excited about. I just had a song with Don Diablo come out, Don Diablo and Danny Olson, an Imogen Heap cover called Hide and Seek.
That's crazy.
I'm working on an album, and just, I feel like creatively I've absorbed everything that's happening right now, and now I'm just like, I just want to write and like have fun. And I feel like it's been a wonderfully different perspective on the work because I'm not in LA in rooms with other people to collaborate with right now. So it's kind of forcing me to sit down and write solo, which I feel like I really needed and I enjoy doing. So
do you normally prefer that? To be like work solo, just basically sit by yourself, songwrite, and then, distribute it out? Or do you prefer to be working and collaborating with other people, like in the same room?
It's kind of, it fluctuates. I feel like if all I'm doing is writing with other people, I feel like I lose touch with my own voice. But if I feel like I'm only writing by myself for long periods of time, I miss, the inspiration of working with other people and learning how they think and they work, and, being exposed to other ways of having a musical process. But, to me, it's about the balance. Right now, I would say I'm leaning on the side of doing a lot of writing solo and working on an album and a lot of records by myself, and just kind of weird left, I'm trying to really push myself as an artist to write something that feels new and different. And I feel like a lot of the culture in LA in co-writes is, how do we write top 40 radio hits? And sometimes I feel like I get a little bit lost in the shuffle of just trying to be like everybody else writing those kinds of records.
Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun writing just weird, different stuff,
Yeah, I imagine for anyone who's a songwriter, or if you're just an artist in general, it sounds like it's pretty much the same across the board, that when you have the opportunity to just do whatever you want, that tends to be what's most fun. Maybe not the most commercially viable thing to do,
right,
but it is fun for you. I'm curious because I definitely want to get into more of your backstory and how you got into music. But for some of the people, there's plenty of listeners here that are very actually curious in the songwriting world and how that works, especially in LA, which is, I'm not sure if it's the biggest songwriting hub, but it's definitely the contender for one of the biggest songwriting hubs. For you, like a traditional songwriting session that you mentioned, like when you go in there in LA and you're having these collabs with people and the whole purpose is to write a jingle or a top charting song, how does a songwriting session like that work, and how does it play out in a day? Like it takes like a day, I'm assuming, right?
Well, that's one of the best and worst things about my job as a songwriter, is that it's different every single day in every single session. There's tips and tricks and ways that it usually goes down. I'd say more often than not, it's me and one writer and one producer. I always find 3 is a good number, but I've also been in sessions where you walk in and there's 10 people in the room because the promoter wants to be there, and the manager and the label, and you got to make sure everybody in the room likes the song, or it's not getting cut or not coming out. So I've seen everything across the board. Right now, I'm obviously working remotely and doing collabs that way. But before quarantine happened, I would say I would be doing co-writes in different studios, 5 to 6 times a week, and then writing solo at home in the mornings and in the evenings by myself, and producing myself and rapping tracks from other collabs myself. But yeah, the vast majority is usually like you get into a session, it's 2 co-writers who are top line and lyric focused, and one of them is usually a singer, and then there'll be a producer to focus on the production. But more and more writers are producing and producers are writing and singing, and it's just kind of a free for all. I'm lucky in that I've been in LA for coming up on 6 years now, and I feel like I'm always open to working with new people, but I do feel like I have a core of incredible writers and producers and artists that I really enjoy working with, and who I feel like I'm making good moves with. So I've been having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, let me ask you this real quick. When there are other people who aren't necessarily songwriters, using the example that you gave me a little bit earlier, where you have the promoter and maybe some executives from the label or something like that sitting in the room, obviously everyone has their expertise and everyone knows, everyone's an expert in something, right? But
right, yeah, of course.
Do you actually feel like their input, someone who's not necessarily like their title isn't producer or songwriter, do you feel like their input is very beneficial, or can it actually harm the songwriting process? Now, obviously, this is obviously speculative based on what I'm saying, but for you specifically, in the experiences that you have actually had, have they been beneficial, or have they been somewhat, maybe not so much?
I will say I've seen both. I've seen people in a writing session who aren't helping the creative process, and I've seen people on somewhat of the business side of the operation being in the room and having great ideas. I'm always open minded where an idea comes from, and if the great idea comes from the person who's the fly on the wall who's never written a song before, if they shout out a brilliant idea, let's use it. That's amazing. We're all just trying to make the best song that we can and make the art as good as we can. But I would say the vast majority of the time, it's nice to keep it intimate. And I always find 3 is a good number, maybe 4. 2 is great as well. But the more people you throw in the room, the more egos you have to juggle, the more personalities you have to juggle, the more watered down stuff can get. Like if one person is really on one that day and has an amazing idea for a song and they have a vision for it, but they have to convince 6 other people in the room of their vision, it's really tough to, have that emotion come through. So I typically find 3 is a good number, and that's what I've been trying to stick to.
Yeah. Do you normally come in with an idea already with every session, or is it, in your opinion, do you prefer it when it's pretty much a blank slate?
I love having concepts, lyrics, chord progressions, grooves, or just like reference songs that I really love that I would love to write more in that space. I love to have an idea of what I would be inspired to do that day, but I do find if I've been super busy, I don't have a big list of concepts. I don't have fresh chord progressions, and sometimes you just got to trust yourself to just sit down and start messing around and know that the muse will show up and you'll have something cool at the end of the day. And to just kind of trust yourself in the moment to just try to write something honest and cool and different. So I mean, sometimes I come in and I'm like, I know exactly what I want the song to be. This is the perfect crew to do it. This is what the title is. This is what the melody is. Let's execute it. And other days it's like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, let's mess around. Let's write a poem and then try to write a song about it. Or, or let's start a beat and, let's just write over it. It's different every single day, and you get different songs in all those ways. I would say what I do most often is I start with chords and then I do gibberish melodies over it, and then I write backwards from the chorus and the title. That's what I like to do. That's what I like to do the most. But as soon as you get used to doing something, then it's probably a good time to just like switch it up and try something different to get re-inspired and to get a new result.
Really? Like how often do you feel like you get, how often do you feel like you need to be re-inspired? Because I imagine that when it comes to songwriting, especially commercially, and you're trying to, you have a goal for what these songs are going to be. I imagine that it can become, I'm not going to say monotonous because writing music can be fun no matter what, but if you're trying to make it into a job, anything that's a job can have, can become monotonous at some point. How often do you find yourself getting or needing to be re-inspired?
I will say not every single project that I work on is incredibly inspiring to me and is like the only project that I want to be working on. Sometimes I do projects because I'm going to get paid for it, and it's because it's a good use of my time financially. But, more and more, the longer that I'm in the industry, the more I can focus on projects that I'm passionate about. And, I do, not some people would scoff at that, but I'm thrilled that I can make a living writing songs, that at the end of the day, if I can do that and
that's the dream, man. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed about that.
Yeah. That's like the main priority. And like everything else after that is, just icing on the cake. But,
yeah, man,
yeah,
I
sorry,
love
I lost
that.
my train of thought.
No worries. I love that. I love how you explain that. And I love that we got a little sneak peek on how some of those writing sessions might work. Because I always get messages from people wanting to know a little bit more about specific industries or specific sides of things, because there's people that just want to know. Sometimes in the music industry, there's so much going on, it's really difficult to understand exactly how the process works. So for you, I'm really curious. I I usually always start with this, but because we were just having a great conversation about songwriting, I decided, hey, I'll just let that go. But I do want to know a little bit more about your backstory. I know that you moved out to LA. I'm not sure if it was straight from Wisconsin to LA or if there was another city that you went to before, but I'd love to know a little bit about your backstory, how you got started with music, and then how you ended up in LA.
Yeah, of course. Well, like I said, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. I come from not a classically trained musical family, but just a family that loves music and that always has music around. My dad is the dad who plays music in his car as loud as he can and sings along to every word and misses half the lyrics. My uncle, my uncle, and my dad just loves singing. He loves music more than anybody I know. And then my uncle Jim and I, he like taught me how to like sing and play for people. We used to play together in like small dive bars in Madison, Wisconsin. We would play together at campfires. I was always the guy who would like play guitar for everybody at the campfire and try to play whatever requests people had. And if I didn't know them, I would just like look them up and learn them for the next time. And I was always trying to get a sing along going. And then when I got to college at UW-Madison, I started doing YouTube acoustic covers of hip hop and R&B songs.
Nice.
I was totally the guy with his shitty photo booth camera, like singing Drake covers.
What year was this?
This is like 2007 to 2010.
The infancy of YouTube, man. Jesus.
Yeah. Just, but I had so much fun doing it, and I feel like I slowly got better at it. And after doing covers, it was like, maybe I should write some of my own stuff. And so I started writing my own stuff and like promoting it on my Facebook page and all that stuff, like the same way a lot of people get started. And I worked at my dad's company in Madison, Wisconsin. He runs a video production company in Madison. Eventually, after 2 years in Madison, I moved to Chicago and worked at The Onion in Chicago, which was really fun. I was an assistant video editor there, but I really wasn't happy. I had friends who were living in LA and who were doing music full time, and I was super envious of them. And after visiting a couple times, I was like, I got to get out here. So I was living in Chicago, and I was on the CTA on the way into work, and I was reading The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which is an incredible book if you're at all feeling resistance to like pursuing your dreams and your craft or whatever it is that your heart is calling you to do. That book is incredible because it really calls you out on your own bullshit. It's like,
really,
he does an amazing job of personifying resistance. He uses the word resistance, but basically anything keeping you from what you really want to be doing, like what you would do if you weren't afraid of failing. He personifies all of the things holding you back as resistance. And the book kind of functions as a manual to fighting your own resistance to start working towards your goals. And I remember reading that on the way into work, and I was like, I'm in the wrong career. I want to be songwriting. I might as well take the risk and just, save up money and move to LA. And that's what I did.
Was it that obvious of a moment? Like, was it pretty much you were reading it, you were in transit, and then instantly you were like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yep.
He's right.
Yep. I quit my job that week. I was like on the CTA getting chills. Like I knew what I had to do, and I knew that I was just, and I knew I was just scared to do it. And we're all gonna die someday, so you might as well take a risk and do what you love. If you really have a passion for it, go for it. Why not?
Yeah.
So yeah, I quit my job in Chicago that week. I moved home with my parents for 6 months to save up money, and then I did the 30-hour drive from Madison to LA with no plan whatsoever. Ran out of money after the first 6 months and started couch surfing with my friends in Silver Lake.
Good place to do it. I love Silver Lake.
Yep. Total hipster ground zero in Los Angeles. And it was kind of a really special experience, actually. It was a bit of an artist commune house. My friends, Steven Swartz, Coda, Quincy, and Nathan Lim were all living in that house, and they're all incredible artists in their own way. Steven has a project called Steven that's absolutely incredible. It's like Citizen Cope with super hard hip hop beats with a dash of EDM. And then Coda is like new school Radiohead, amazing vocalist, amazing production.
Yeah.
Super left of center stuff. So I had an artist commune that I lived with in Silver Lake, and I was living on the couch there. And on my birthday, all the guys in the house surprised me and turned the upstairs hallway into a little mini bedroom for me. They put a curtain up and a little blow up
That's
twin
cool,
mattress.
Man. That's cool.
Blow up twin mattress on the floor. And I remember just crying because it meant that I could stay in LA and keep like working towards my goal. Cause I was out of money at that point and like thought I was going to have to move home. And that was basically like my ticket to stay in LA and just keep working at it. So I lived on that twin mattress on the floor in the hallway above the living room in that house for over 2 years before I signed a publishing deal.
Wow.
And could get an apartment. Yeah. And I wrote something like 300 to 400 songs in that time. So
Jesus,
it was it was a really crazy era.
God damn. What year was that, by the way, when you were couch surfing in Silver Lake?
That would have been, so 4 years ago.
So 2015, 2016?
Yeah, 2015, 2016. That sounds right.
Wow,
yep.
Dude. I remember that year very, very well. For many, many different reasons, but I've been saying this a lot in the podcast because it is true. There's been this huge influx of musicians that have been coming to LA, especially in the last 5-6 years, more than normal. Like LA, and I'm sick and tired of saying this because everyone that listens to the show has heard me say this at least 10 times, but it's true because I'm born and raised here in LA. And it's interesting when you're from here, you see this influx, people always coming and going, and it's never something new. But in the past 5 years, I would even say maybe 10 years, but definitely the past 5 years, there's just been a huge concentration of musicians specifically, not even just other artists. I'm talking about just music related artists basically have come to LA to just do their thing. And it's crazy to hear so many success stories. It isn't rare. I think that's why so many people are coming, because so many people are actually doing their thing. They're actually finding success. And you're a classic example of that. And I want to keep exploring that. But dude, there's so many things in your story that I'm not even sure I'm going to have enough time to explore. But there is one thing I want to try and pick your brain on a little bit. And it's about that book, dude. That book really piqued my curiosity because I hear so many stories all the time. There's so many artists that I have the opportunity to work with, and there's always a moment in their life that changes. There's always a moment where I can trace it back, and I'm able to, if I were to draw their life on a map, I'd be able to, put a little pin in it and be like, that's the moment where they decided to do their thing, right? And I feel like it's either 50-50. Some people remember it very well. Some people, it was more of a gradual transition, but yours was one of those that's very obvious. And so in this book, I'm not even talking about the book specifically, but when you were reading about resistance, I think that's what you were saying, and you were on the transit. What was it specifically about your life that you read and you were like, whoa, I'm doing this to myself? Like, as a concept, I think most people can agree, but then once you start to get detailed with it, it can get a little complex. And so for you, I'm curious, what was it that you read, or I'm not even sure if you can remember, but if you can, what was it about your life that resonated with you and you decided, okay, yeah, he's right. I am afraid of A, B, and C, D. If that makes sense.
I do remember the one specific thing that completely changed my mindset, and it was the idea of being a professional and how he talked about a professional. And at the time I was working at the Onion Chicago, and I was doing music in the evenings, and it was like I had this job that was my like full-time job, and I was doing music around that and hoping music would somehow become my full-time job. Like somebody would just show up to me and say, here's your record deal and quit your job. And I'm sure that happens for some people, but
it's rare,
this book really,
but it has happened.
Yeah. This book, I felt like this book was talking directly to me and calling me out. It's like, why would you expect to rise above the rest as exceptional in a career path if you don't fully commit to it? And I was like putting my toe in the water, like I want to be a songwriter, and then like doing it for like 5 hours a week. But, I feel like when I figured out that I had to treat it like a full-time job and really just eliminate all plan B and just dive into it and figure it out, how to make it my full-time job and figure out how to make it my life, was when things changed. Cause I stopped having a plan B. I stopped having this reassurance of this other career path. And I just like went balls to the wall, all in on being a songwriter, and it's scary to first make that decision because you have to really believe in yourself. I had to be like, okay, am I good enough to make this happen? Like, do I think I'm capable of going to LA and trying to make a music career? And the obvious answer is like, no, you're not good enough yet. But like, if you spend all day, every day working towards that goal, yeah, you could be good enough. And yeah, you might as well take the shot. So,
yeah,
I felt confidence in my abilities at that point that I could get good enough to like make it my career. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's just crazy to think about now. It's super like I had a somebody who I was talking to in that era in Chicago just like reply to an email when I was applying for a video production job in Chicago. He replied to the email like, I just saw you on Songland. It's so crazy to see this email thread of you trying to apply for a job for video production gig in Chicago when you wanted to be doing music. And it was emotional to see that, just how different my life is now versus then, you know, how much more I feel like I get to be myself.
Yeah, it's one of those cheesy things that, I mean, there's different phrases, right? But I'm always hearing that the metaphor of like how life is a painting. You know, it's a very cheesy statement, but I think it's true. I think it's one of those things where when you're in the heat of the moment, you can't really see where the brushstrokes, I guess for metaphor's sake, the brushstrokes, you can't really see what they're actually doing. But when you see the whole thing from a distance, it shows something real. And what's fascinating about your choices, to me specifically, is I'm from LA, right? So I'm very grateful for everything that I've been given in life, and I'm very grateful for the things that I've been able to achieve and whatnot. But growing up here and being in this environment where everyone is chasing their dreams, because I do firmly believe that LA is a dream town. Everyone comes here to try and make something of themselves, in entertainment at least. And being around that, I am sad to say that I feel like someone who's a local here, like me, you do get sort of numb to that, and the idea that everyone is trying to chase their dreams. So you literally hear it 50 times a day. No matter where you go, someone is trying to do something, you know? And so you kind of end up being like, all right, I mean, you get it because you're also trying to do it. So it's just what it is. What I'm curious for you is when you decided that, okay, I'm going to stop making excuses and I'm going to, you know, make this my thing. I'm going to try and be a professional. What were some of the doubts that you had? And did you actually have a plan? Like, did you just decide, okay, I'm going to quit and go for it? Or did you spend some time? I mean, I know you said you saved up some money, but part of that, was part of the time that you used to save up money, did you use that to actually make a plan? Or was it still pretty much like, I'm just going to go for it, if that makes sense?
My plan was just to spend as much time getting better as a songwriter as possible, which at the time to me was just writing as many songs as possible. I was writing 1 to 3 songs every single day, and, you know, not complete productions, like not polished and finished, but I was writing every single day in a studio by myself, just trying to write something special. And I just told myself, like, if I really focus on just that, on just becoming the best songwriter I can, that I could write records that would turn heads and that people would notice that I was writing songs that had value, you know? And there was little tipping points for me, you know, specific songs where people who were listening to my demos in the industry kind of went, huh, I think he might be onto something. Or it was like, whoa, he's definitely onto something. Or it was, you know, the first time I got a manager, a guy named Jack Minahan, who I'm still good friends with. He's no longer my manager, but I remember him jumping on the team and him being like, you have all these amazing records. There's value in these. I'm going to start setting up meetings for you with publishers. Like, that was huge. But I had to write, you know, 300 to 500 songs to find the 5 songs that blew him out of the water, you know? So it was early on, it was like just, you know, throwing paint, like writing as many songs as I could to try to find those special records. And in that process, I felt like I learned so much. And now I feel like when I used to have to write 500 songs to write one song that was special, I feel like, you know, I don't have to write quite as many songs to write a song that I think is special, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the more you do it, the more quickly you get at the meat of the idea, you know, and the better you get at channeling something special, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Out of those 500 songs, what made those 5 good songs obvious to you? Like, what was it about it? Was it just an instant feeling that you heard these songs and you instantly knew they were good songs, or were there specific elements that you can write down, that you can basically say, oh no, had a great hook. It was this long, great tempo. I'm not even sure what I'm saying, but I'm asking if you knew right away that these songs were good because you knew the details, or was it just a feeling?
I think it was a feeling, and seeing how people that I was playing the song for were reacting. It was actually very specific for me. It was one song called Tipsy Love. And this was when I was living in the artist commune house. And at that point, I would play my demos for everybody else in the house. And Steven was already a star. He had a massive EDM song called Bullet Train. And Coda was already a star because he had a massive like indie hit called Staying. And I was the guy who was just like living in the hallway and literally writing every single song out of a walk-in closet and just trying to write something to like keep up with everyone. And
these are your buddies, right?
Yeah, these are some of my best friends. Like, I'm still really close with all these guys to this day.
So you knew them before they went out to LA?
I met them in LA, actually. Gotcha. So the common person I have with all these people is my friend Quincy Harrison, who went to UW Madison. He's actually, if you're from Wisconsin, you'll know he did the Teach Me How to Bucky music video for the UW football games. If you're not from Wisconsin, that's going to sound ridiculous to you. It's like it was a Teach Me How to Dougie cover song, but he was famous on campus for that. And we started making music together in just after college, and we pushed each other creatively. Him as a writer producer, me as a writer singer. So we would work together every day. He played a huge role in the early stages of my career because he was the person who I knew who was living in that artist commune house. So he was the one who kind of got me in with that crew.
Yeah.
And so
then you started playing your demos for them. Now that you were in the artist commune, you were playing your demos for them, right?
Yeah. At the end of, so we would all wake up, we would make breakfast, and then we would all disappear into different rooms of the house where we all had our recording setups. And at the end of every day, we would all come back to the living room where the piano and the guitars were, and we had a giant set of speakers, and we would all play the demo from that day. And Steven would be playing just like incredible hip hop beats, and Coda would be playing stuff that was making everybody cry. And I was like the folksy Wisconsin guy who, just wasn't a very good producer, but I had good natural instincts on guitar. And I was getting better at lyrics and melody. And I remember the first song that people were like, whoa, was my song Tipsy Love, which was the first song I ever put out. And I feel like you can always tell when something special is happening with a specific record because people start going, can I hear that again?
Ooh,
can you send me that? Can we hear it again? And I remember we were sitting in the living room at like 1 a.m. and my friends just had it on repeat, and we're just like, they played it like, 8 times or something like that. And we were all just like laying back, and they were like, what is this? Like, do more of this,
Yeah. How crazy.
So that was an exciting time.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was starting to find my voice and my style, which was essentially just writing on guitar and just keeping production super stripped,
Yeah. Would you say that your style, even though you've kind of come up with your own unique version of it, do you think that being in that artist commune, did you take influences from everybody? And if you were to play back some of your music, could you sit there and be like, oh yeah, that's something Coda would do, and then I also added a little bit of that, a little bit of this person's style? Like, does that make sense that you'd kind of take a little bit from everybody and apply it to your own style?
100%. I think even just our taste, like stuff that Steven loves, I love. Stuff Coda loves, I love. I feel like I learned so much from the two of them in how they produce and how they think about music. And I feel like I taught them things too. Steven was like a super, super incredible producer, but he was still learning how to sing and how to write songs. And I had a little more experience as a singer. He had way more experience as a producer. So we got to teach each other. Like, I would always come down and sing his harmonies, and he would always give me tips on production or help me with my drums or help me mix a song that he thought was really good. He actually ended up producing one of my early releases, Wasted Roses. So that ended up coming out with both of us because he co-produced that one along with my most recent single, Unforgettable. He produced both of those, which is why the production is so good on those two songs. And Coda as well. I'm so inspired by him, and I feel like I learned so much from him and his process and how he thinks about music, and just how free his music is.
Yeah. So do you,
Yeah.
in your experience then, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be, but do you feel like that is the ideal situation for someone who's trying to be a songwriter or even someone who's trying to be an artist? Is that necessary to be in that environment? Not necessarily maybe live in an artist commune, but at least to be in a very heavy artist focused community where you're surrounded by music every day or a lot of the time. Do you feel like that's necessary to become a good artist, just like you did?
I don't know if I would say it's necessary, because some people, I've heard of artists who just start tinkering and finding their sound on their own in an isolated city in the middle of nowhere, and you hear amazing stories. I only know from me being in an environment where I had instant feedback at the end of the day from people who I respected and who were also, in the trenches trying to make something special, and we could all think about and discuss and share our opinions on each other's music. I think something that I had that a lot of people don't have early on as a creative is people who would be honest with you. I think as soon as every single person around you is like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and then they change the subject, it's like, find people to surround yourself with who will be honest with you about your art. I know I personally try to tell people anytime anyone shares art with me, if they want my actual feedback, I say, here's 3 things that I love about this, and here's 3 things that I think could be better about this. And I feel like my favorite people to bounce ideas off are not gonna bullshit me. If something that I'm excited about is not that cool or not that good, they'll tell me that. And if they love something, they'll tell me that they love it, and they'll give me ideas on how to improve it. And I do feel like with the guys in that house, I was very lucky in that I had people to be honest with me about my work and to just keep me inspired and keep me motivated. It's easy to get down on yourself when you're still growing, and having somebody be like, yo, this is so sick. If these verses are whack, but if that chorus is so good, if you just change this and this and this, having people around you who can push you in that way is just so important.
Yeah. In your experience and the success that you've been experiencing, do you feel like everyone in the industry that you've been meeting, people that are at the top of their game or people who are very good at what they do you find that that is a common trait, that they're able to take criticism very well and they're always looking for that honesty? Is that a trait that kind of goes across the board and that is necessary to be successful, in your opinion?
Interesting. I feel like it's healthy to have people who you trust for feedback and whose opinions you respect. But I think if you're listening to too many people, it can turn you off. If you're trying to listen to too many people for their opinion, specifically if you're trying to do something really bold, I think it's okay to just say, fuck you, this is what I like. I think it can be healthy, especially if you've put in your 10,000 hours and you feel like you're starting to discover who you are as an artist. It's okay to do something super different that other people are going to go, I don't really like that, or that's not how it's done. It's okay. It's art. There's no rules. You can say, fuck you, this is how I think it should be. This is what I like. And sometimes if you get really good at what you do, people will all start copying you and the weird shit that you're doing. Am I allowed to swear, by the way?
Absolutely, 100%. Come on,
okay,
fuck
cool.
it. Yes. No, well, here's the thing. I'm so grateful that you said that, because in my experience with running this show and being around musicians all the time, I'm constantly hearing, and I'm going to use this as an example, and I hope that I don't offend anybody out there, but I'm exposed to tons of new music every day because of what I do. And with every song that I hear and every artist that I'm exposed to, obviously every now and then you get some really impressive people like yourself. You get people that are very talented and they're at the top of their game and doing cool things. But underneath it all, there's tons of good music or decent music from artists that are trying to make it, but it maybe just isn't there. Maybe it just isn't 100% perfect. And you're trying to, inspire people and trying to build people up. And I can't tell you how many times I get messages, or just hear from other people like myself who get messages from artists who are offended, or people who are like, oh, you didn't like my song? I poured my heart and soul into it. It was produced by so-and-so. And they give you a bullet point list as to why their song is good and why you're wrong. And I'm just sitting there, and over time, it's kind of occurred to me that the more people I meet like you, the more I see a similarity. Maybe they aren't like you specifically, JT, but there is this sort of ability to take criticism and be able to kind of pick out the right criticism for themselves and not necessarily ignore the rest, but not be fazed by it, if that makes sense. And that's how
Yeah,
I always
totally.
see you, someone like you, I always see improve because they know that certain things may not be perfect. They find that criticism, apply it, and then they evolve and get even better. So do you feel like that's kind of your personality? Like you have something like that?
Oh, for sure. I'm always interested to hear what people think of my work. But I take it with a grain of salt. You know, maybe it's somebody who doesn't have the context of the whole project that I'm working on. Maybe I'm working on an album and the song that I'm playing them is the outro song and it's supposed to be a certain way as part of the big picture. Or maybe they don't understand the direction that I have for my project and they really like EDM, but it's a folk song and folk fans will love it, you know?
Yeah.
In my early career as an artist, I submit all my songs through a website called Submit Hub,
Yep.
where you can submit to blogs and YouTube channels. And it's an amazing outlet to get your music out there. But it definitely leans towards, you know, banging beats, big drops. You know, there's specific blogs that are looking for specific things and specific YouTube channels that are looking for specific things. And I feel like I know what my artist project is about. I think it's about vocals and guitars and songwriting and choruses and melody. And it's not as much about like how banging is the drop or like how well does this play on radio or this or that. Or like how good does it play in a TikTok video or whatever it is. Those are things that I care about less than the song and the message and the way that you feel at the end of it. Or like it being stuck in your head at the end of it, or like the, you know, just the impact that it has on you from listening to it. Like I would rather have, you know, 10,000 fans who are like diehard fans than 100,000 fans who don't really understand what my project is, don't really get a lot out of it. It doesn't really have a lot of meaning to them, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about the intention too.
Yeah.
But I also find like early on when I feel like you're still putting in your 10,000 hours to your craft and you're really just still trying to learn the rules and get good at, you know, they say you got to learn the rules to break them. I feel like I do remember being defensive of my early demos. Like, man, I spent like 5 days on this. Like, how can you not think it's beautiful? Like, that's a real dynamic.
Of course.
But like you start learning how to just like let it go and like not have your ego so wrapped up in every single piece that you create.
Yeah.
I think actually I love hippie new Jim Carrey where he goes on all these like hippie tangents on YouTube. I just love him so much.
Did you see that post he did on Mother's Day? The one where he was like, "Oh, I hugged my mom, you know, in real life instead of posting about it on Instagram or something." He like had some weird statement.
He is just on one. He just gets it.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's having, but I will have what he is having. But one quote specifically that really resonated with me from him was, "We're not the avatars we create. We are the light that shines through it," or something like that. Essentially saying like you don't have to get your ego wrapped up into every single little project and every single little character that you create for yourself. Ultimately, you're just the effort that goes into it.
Yeah.
And in the big picture, it's just that you're trying to make something beautiful for the world, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that freed me so much because I felt like I was trying to like every single demo that I felt like it had to just sound exactly like me. And this is what my entire project had to be about. But it's okay to just like make something and just love it for what it is, you know, and just let it be what it is. I don't know. I feel like that freed me up a lot.
I love that. Do you feel like that ability to love something just for what it is that a skill that everybody can learn, or is it maybe just a personality thing or a type of trait that only specific people can have?
I don't think it's a trait that just specific people can have. I think it's about like letting go, you know,
Yeah.
like I talk to Steven a lot. I'm super inspired by Steven, and I was super.
Steven, this
sent me a
podcast has
sneak.
just become about you. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah,
It's about
I know.
Coda and
I love you.
Steven.
I love you, Steven. I love you, Coda. They're my boys. But I was super inspired. Steven has an album coming out soon, and I was super inspired by it. He gave me an early listen to it, and it's super free. It's just he's not limiting himself to genre. You know, he lets mistakes be there, and you know, parts where the vocal is pitchy, but like it all feels very raw and genuine. And when you listen to it as a whole, it just feels different,
Yeah.
and it feels so free. And I feel like it inspired me with this next project that I'm working on. I feel like I'm not trying to limit myself to genre as much. I'm kind of just trying to focus on what feels real and emotional. And I'm trying to let go of all these pop rules that I've had in my head from trying to write radio top 40 songs and pitch records to, the Jonas Brothers or whoever, whatever artist you think is going to get you a big paycheck. That's like some of the pop culture in LA.
Yeah.
But,
it's
I
the
feel
business.
I feel like this quarantine has been the perfect opportunity to just write some weird, different stuff and just reconnect with my love of just sitting down and writing something to express how you feel, because it's easy to get distracted from that and the business side of the industry.
Yeah, well, actually, that kind of leads me to my next question, because as some of you guys may know, or if you guys haven't known, Mr. JT was on a very cool TV show very recently called Songland, which is filmed here in LA. And I know that the whole purpose of Songland is essentially about songwriting, right? Like, I mean, the whole concept of it is about the song, which is, I don't think it's something that's ever been done on TV before. So really cool concept. And you managed to get on the show and you managed to get your song on One Republic, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Somebody to Love. One Republic put it out. It's going to be on their album.
Hell yeah. So then I'm curious then, do you feel like these rules that you spend so much time learning, was that one of the reasons why you even got on the show, is because you mentioned how you understood these rules now, you kind of learn what it takes to make a pop song, what hits, what doesn't. Is that sort of what you had to learn in order to get on the show?
I think so. Yeah. I think the value of all the time that I spent in Los Angeles just grinding and writing with people and trying to get better at what I do and learning little lessons here and there, I think you get better. But ultimately I just had a song that was that they felt was good and appropriate for One Republic, and I got lucky too. Like, I just got lucky. It's like it sounded like a One Republic song. One Republic heard it and they took it and put it out. Like, there's a million different ways that could have gone. It'd be silly to say that I didn't get lucky too. But it's not all luck. I wrote a song every single day and I had a ton of demos. And when, I had a song that I felt good about. So I entered it for the show and got to play it for the show, and it felt like a real one, so.
Yeah. What was the experience like, by the way, being on the show? Because I know that, I'm not sure if you were there for multiple days. Maybe you were just there for a day. But what was the experience like from the beginning all the way until the end?
It was amazing. It was so much fun. It is super, super surreal. It feels like a dream you're having, like walking out and seeing all these judges staring at you and like all the nerves leading up until that moment. There's so much nervousness leading up to that moment because I've performed for people, but I would never perform on live TV for 8 million people or whatever it was.
And then judges too, to have judges in front of you as well.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't live, but like,
yeah,
I've never performed for like a panel of judges who are going to just eat. You see reality TV shows and they'll rip into people. Like I had no idea. I had no idea how that was going to go. So I just focused as much as I could on performing. But I was definitely really nervous. But it really was just such a fun experience. A lot of my favorite parts of it were actually just hanging out with the other contestants on the show, like all the people from season 1 who were performing their songs. We all went through kind of the same experience together, so we all got to know each other, and I think it really bonded all of us. I write with a lot of the contestants and like have become friends with a lot of them, and that was definitely a special thing about the show for sure. And getting to work with Shane McAnally. Shane McAnally is just as good as you hope he's going to be. He's an incredible writer and lyricist. Obviously, Tedder's amazing. Esther and Jason Evigan. And yeah, just super, super incredible experience that I'm very proud to be a part of, because I think a lot of people don't understand what goes into a song. I think a lot of people before Songland probably just were like, yeah, Justin Bieber, he writes all of his songs and they're all good. And
nope.
It's like, nope, there's like hundreds of people involved with that process and they're all amazing at what they do too. And this is kind of a glimpse into what that is like. Yeah.
And I love that there is a show that actually manages to put that out there. I think Dave Stewart is probably responsible for a big portion of that, and great producer. I'm curious, did you get the opportunity to actually continue working with One Republic after you won the show and like during their version of their song?
I didn't know. They were. It was amazing meeting One Republic and to get to talk to Ryan Tedder and the band. But I haven't. I mean, they're like superstars. Tedder's in the room writing the next Jonas Brothers album, whatever it is. He's a stud, and he's always working on the next giant project. So even just getting to be in the room and to be a part of that record with them was huge, and a huge honor. And to just see these people who I idolize so much for their work and their craft, to just see that they're just doing the exact same thing that I'm doing every day, which is just sitting down and brainstorming, just like getting better at what they do and hoping lightning strikes. And that was just seeing that up close is super inspiring, and I feel like made the world feel even smaller and made me feel even more so like, okay, yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm getting better at it, and I'm doing what these people were doing. So hopefully I can have a similar career path.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that sometimes you hit these milestones that remind you that everybody that you've ever looked up to is just like you. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I think who was it? Was it Steve Jobs who said something very similar to this? Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it's close. I think he said that the whole world was built by people who are not smarter than you, or who are like just as smart as you. And when you realize that, and you put that into context, and you realize that the people that you might look up to, yes, they're very talented and amazing at what they do, but the reality is you can probably be just as good, if you aren't already. And I think that reigns true when you have opportunities like being on Songland and working with people like that. Were there any long-lasting lessons that you learned from being on the show? Maybe not even music related, but is there something that you kind of didn't know about yourself or about the industry that you learned after being on that show?
I feel like it definitely gave me confidence. I was just scared to do that, and I kind of just told myself, like, what's the worst that could happen, and it would be an amazing opportunity if this went well. So I just, took the risk. So I was proud of myself for doing that. I think what got me through it was thinking about my family. Like, there were definitely days where I was like really nervous, and I was like, man, it would be so much fun to go home to Wisconsin and watch this show with my family and friends and to like celebrate with them. So that was like a huge motivating thing for me. So I think it was just the confidence from it that was a wonderful takeaway from it. And that's something I'm super grateful for. It was just, I felt inspired moving into all the next records that I was writing. And I definitely feel like I learned a lot from writing with Shane McAnally. And I mean, just a once in a lifetime, like, holy shit, incredibly surreal experience to go through that and to win the finale episode and to just hear the One Republic, like, they really did crush it. It really was a perfect song for them. Tedder sounds absolutely incredible on it. Like, when he sings the post chorus, which I usually sang in falsetto and could barely sing in falsetto because it's really high up there. He sings it in chest voice, which is like,
damn.
If you don't know, like, I don't know, like, try singing that post chorus in chest voice, like not going to falsetto.
Is he belting the whole time?
Yeah, he belts the whole post chorus. It's unbelievable. And seeing that for the first time, like surrounded by my family, was amazing. Just super, super fun to see that.
Damn, man. I'm so happy for you. I mean, that sounds like such an amazing experience, and to walk out of that and be super confident and understand that what you're doing is right and that you're on the right path, and that this is just a friendly little reminder from the universe that you are actually doing the right thing. Is this confidence something that you feel like you kind of took with you and started applying to a lot of the collaborations and new music that you started writing afterwards?
Yeah, I do feel like it made me even more fearless, I got to perform on stage with Said the Sky and Slander.
Oh, nice.
Last summer at the Palladium at a Said the Sky show. And I, a year before that, I would have been super nervous to do that, but I had just done Songland for like, to be on TV in front of millions of people. So like, I was less nervous to sing for 10,000 people or whatever it was. So the more you push yourself and the more you're like, I'm afraid to do this, and you just do it, the less afraid you are to do something that's like it, or, I just feel like I was pushing myself, and I felt like growing through like facing fears,
Yeah.
And I think it's carried over into my day-to-day career in that, I've taken on a lot more motivation to become a better producer, because I'm not afraid of just like becoming a better producer. So I'm watching, I watch mixwiththemasters.com. I learn a lot about mixing from that. And I'm more asking questions to other producers that I work with about how to become a better producer. And, you know,
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of being one of those people who will sell himself short a little bit. And I feel like the whole experience has made me feel a little bit more like, okay, you know, I'm making progress, and I can be proud of myself for these things, and I can have a little more confidence. So
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And I think I myself have been getting a little bit into producing too, just a little bit, just to kind of understand what it's all about. And it's crazy the amount of knowledge that you need to be really, really good at it. Insane. Like to me, like I'm a drummer, and to me, playing drums compared to producing, I mean, it's a different beast, obviously, but there's so much that I didn't know that goes on into producing that it's incredible. Like the amount of things you got to know. Even mixing in itself is a different art form that can take a lifetime to learn how to do. Like it's insane. And I'm very happy that you are getting into that world. As a side note, I know that you're very interested in EDM, or at least it sounds like you're actually very interested in EDM based on the collaboration or the work that you did for Don Diablo and some of the other things that you have coming out. I'm curious, what got you interested in the genre to begin with?
you know, I've been in the culture of EDM for a little bit. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I was living in a house with a guy named Nathan Lim, who was managing Cruella at the time. Amazing EDM duo. And at that point, I was trying to get a publishing deal, so I was writing with a lot of people, and I wrote with and for them a lot in that era, and just really got into the EDM scene that way. Amazing respect for those two girls, by the way. They work so hard, and they're like the sweetest people ever. A lot of amazing music. I worked on Broken Record with them and a couple others. But just incredibly loyal fan bases. It's music that makes people happy. The shows in EDM music, it's a different experience to go to an EDM show and to just feel that kind of music coming at you through an incredible sound system, and to just participate in that culture. So I feel like, having been to EDM shows, I understand the appeal of that music and what that atmosphere is like. So I enjoy writing that style of music. I also feel like collaborations in that space come naturally to me, because I write a lot of songs stripped on guitar with guitar and vocals, and I'll write a song that's just nothing but guitar and vocals, and I can send that to an EDM producer, and they all have their styles and their strengths and, you know, their sounds. And it's so cool to send somebody a vocal and a guitar, and then, you know, whatever it is, a few months later, they send you their version, and it's like on complete electronic music steroids, and sounds like a completely new musical experience. And, you know, you could go from just like, oh, this demo is super chill and makes me want to cry, to like, wow, I want to go for a run now and, you know, sweat while I cry or dance or just headbang or whatever it is, you know. So I have tremendous respect for the genre. And the fans of that genre are some of the most loyal fans of any genre of music.
Yeah.
You know, being exposed to that through Potions with Slander and Said the Sky has been so much fun. And I have a record coming out with Slander this week called Better Than Heaven. I'm super excited for that. I just had a song with, you know, like you said, Don Diablo and Danny Olson. I'm thrilled to be a part of that community, and I think it partners well with the singer-songwriter lane that I have for my own project. So it's been really fun to, you know, explore both of those spaces simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm curious because I got introduced to EDM maybe about a year or two ago. I can't remember the date, but definitely I'm more of a newbie than compared to most people, right? But, you know, I think you and I both relate in the sense where I'm a musician and you're a singer-songwriter, so we kind of have a lot of the same skill sets to some degree.
Right.
But I'm curious for you, because you did mention how, like, when you went to your first concert, you understood the what was attractive about it, like what was the vibe. As a musician or someone who may have not come from that world but now is very heavily involved, what was it specifically that attracted you to the genre? Was it the people? Was it, I mean, the energy that you felt when you were there live? Like, is there anything specific that you can remember that you were like, oh shoot, that's what it's all about, if that makes sense?
Yeah, my first EDM shows that I went to, my first experience was actually probably one of the more intense EDM experiences you can have, which was Electric Forest.
Oh, damn.
In Rothbury, Michigan. a couple years after college, which is, we were there for 3 or 4 nights. We're staying in tents and going to shows all day long. And I had never really been to a festival. So that was incredible. Like, I don't know who's been there and who hasn't, but you walk into this forest and it's like a carnival. And there's music and there's art, and, it's like, it's kind of like Woodstock in 1969, in that you just see people in their most free form and what that's like, in the good and in the bad ways. but then the music starts, and it's just different. I mean, it's just different hearing EDM music live and like feeling the sound system hit you. It's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my first experience. Also just going to Cruella's shows, and my friend Kilogram, I went to his show. Kilogram is amazing, and just his shows turned into a mosh pit, which I had never been to a concert. Like, I go to like singer-songwriter folk shows.
Imagine a mosh pit at a singer-songwriter folk show.
Absolutely not.
That would be insane.
Yeah, it's a different experience. But like, I'll go see a Bon Iver show and I'm sitting down and just listening and experiencing it, and that's equally as powerful, but in a totally different ways. But it's therapeutic, and it's like a release to go to a show and like move your body and sweat, and then like have a mosh pit with a bunch of strangers where people are just releasing energy essentially. And it's super fun. Like, I didn't get it until then, but I get it now. It was just so much fun, and you feel like you walk out of a show like that and you're like, man, like that's a release from the stress that was my week or whatever it was,
Yeah. One way that I've explained it to a couple of friends who aren't necessarily into the genre just yet, but, as a musician who has experienced it and appreciates it, one of the ways I explained it, and I'm curious if you can see it this way, how you watch a lot of the old videos from like the 80s of the really big legendary rock bands of the day, and you see like the giant crowds and you see some of the mosh pits and stuff, especially like in metal, maybe even during the 90s. The way I explain it is the energy in the crowd is similar to that to some degree. Obviously, it's different because it's a different genre and a different community. But I feel like when I visualize it in my head, and when you're there, it kind of feels like you're part of that. Like, this is kind of a evolution of that to some degree. Even though the music sounds completely different, it's almost like it evolved to this to some degree. I'm curious, do you feel like it's like that at all, or is it something completely different to you?
I think sonically it's different, but like at its core, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with all music, It's about, community and art and freedom and all those beautiful things.
Yeah.
But I do feel that EDM was exciting when it first started, and it was the first. It was like a big step for just the sonics of what a live show could be. These guys had the technology just on their laptops to just make music sound bigger and fuller and more intense in ways. And when you hear that kind of music coming out of a big sound system, it's just different. It's a different experience. So, yeah, I do feel like it's evolving. I think EDM hasn't had a major influence on pop music in general, urban pop. I think all the genres are merging right now, and where they overlap and where new genres are formed. That's like what's most exciting to me is, stepping into a new space. Like, what if you merge this type of EDM with this type of singer-songwriter with this type of urban trap or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And then you merge all three of those things. You're like, wow, this is like a whole new space. Those are the kinds of things that are really exciting to me. But
yeah. And based off of that, I'm curious then, do you think that the songwriting approach that you normally have for other things, it's a very similar for EDM? Because I know that you mentioned that at first you would like write a song, send it off to a producer, and then when it comes back, it's completely different. But obviously the lyrics and form are probably the same. But I'm curious for you, do you approach, like if you know that you're going to be working on a strictly like EDM or electronic type of genre, is your songwriting the same, or does it change depending on the genre?
I do a lot of songwriting, so every single time it's different. I typically, if I'm starting by myself, I just start on guitar or piano, and then I do melodies, and then I write lyrics after that. But it's different every time. Sometimes I have a melody in mind. Sometimes I have the entire chorus written in my head before I come sit down to write chords. I know, for example, my two songs with Slander, the first one, Potions, was Set the Sky. That started just me and the two guys from Slander in a studio, and we just wanted a great song. And so I laid down 4 chords, we looped it, I sang a bunch of melodies, we chopped it up, found the 4 or 5 melodies that felt really special, arranged them, and then wrote lyrics together. But in the case of Better Than Heaven, which comes out this week, Derek from Slander sent me the instrumental. He's like, I love this instrumental. Like, I don't have the right top line to this. Like, can you write to this soon? And so I was blown away by the instrumental. So it came out really fast and really naturally. And yeah, I wrote the melody and the lyrics like after the entire instrumental was put together.
Wow.
Like 90% of the way there. So 2 super different experiences, but 2 awesome and very different songs. But it's just, you know, case in point, it's just, you never know what your process is going to be until you end up at the finish line. And that's really all that matters, you know?
Yeah, I completely understand. And so I'm curious for you, what are some of the cool things that you're looking forward to? Are there any new releases that are coming out? Any new collaborations? I know you said that you had this new Don Diablo collaboration that just came out very recently. Talk to me a little bit about the music that you've got coming out recently, and maybe some stuff that might be forthcoming, maybe some things that we aren't allowed to know. I don't know, maybe just nudge me in the right way.
I am trying to release a song under my artist project, JT Roach, 1 song a month this whole year.
Sick.
I think I may drop an album at some point, or maybe 2 albums, depending on how they come together. I want to just get it right and make sure that I'm in love with it before I like feel like I got to put it out. So I'm working super hard on that. But certainly a single every month or 2, probably every month this year. I've been sticking with, and I'm trying to think if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I don't think I will.
You don't have to if you don't need to. You can just give me like a hint if you want.
I have a single coming out with Slander.
Oh, sick.
At the end of this month that I'm super excited about.
Got it.
So yeah, I'm super excited for that. It's a really dope song, so I'm excited for that to come out.
Well, I mean, JT, thank you so much for taking a little moment just to kind of give me a little sneak peek about what you're doing. And for the singles that you're releasing every month, is that a strategy that you're trying to implement, or is that just because you want to? Is this a personal challenge to just release a single every month?
It's a personal challenge, sure, but it's also just to keep new music coming out for the people who enjoy my music, you know, I'm super grateful for the people who follow my music and people who are fans of my music. And I want to do everything that I can to just keep them engaged and to keep awesome records coming out for them to enjoy. That's like what it's all about to me. So I also just feel like in the culture of, you know, streaming right now, I feel like it's good to just keep music coming out, you know. It seems to be appropriate to keep releasing singles as opposed to albums. That's just, especially if you're a new artist, that's kind of what seems to be the formula right now. But I love putting out collections just because I love listening to collections. So I think I'm going to put an album out later this year. But in the meantime, I will be putting out singles for sure. Yeah,
I love that, man. Hey, JT, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know that we're all in our homes doing our whatever we can to stay afloat, but I think you are using your time wisely and being creative and doing some cool things. And I am very grateful that I got the opportunity to learn a little bit about your life and how you got into music and all of that stuff. For those out there that are huge fans of you, or other musicians that are looking to do what you're doing, you already said more than enough, man. You already said things that are beyond inspiring. But if there's one thing that somebody could do to, you know, start doing this professionally, or something that they could do for themselves to actually start pursuing what they want to do, what would you suggest for them to be doing?
There's so many cliches, like believe in yourself, like don't be afraid, like you can do it. But like for me, it's just have the courage to suck for a while. You know, like have the courage to sit down and try every day and admit to yourself, yeah, maybe I'm not really good right now. Maybe I suck. But maybe if I do this for a while, I won't suck.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll go from I kind of suck to I'm kind of getting good, and then to like, dang, this is pretty awesome, to like, oh, this is my career and this is what I do now and I love it. You know, just like be patient with yourself, sit down, try, and don't be afraid to write some bad ideas or to create some bad ideas, because that's exactly the same way that amazing ideas happen. It's just from sitting down and just messing around and trying.
Yeah. And
is that decent?
oh, of course it is.